Hello everyone, this is Professor Robert Solis. Welcome to this next video lesson. So what we're going to talk about is the introduction to subs. Now, a sub is a chunk of code that you call it to execute something and you don't get any results back. So I call it, it does its job, that's it. And the beautiful thing about creating a sub is I don't have to recreate that sub. I've created it once and I can use it again and again and again, kind of like creating a hammer. Once I've created a hammer, I can use it to pound nails into wood. I don't have to recreate that particular tool. That's what a function and what a sub is. Now, we're talking about functions next week. Here we're talking about subs, which is nothing more than a chunk of code that you execute, and it does not return anything back to you. So why don't I create a very simple program that displays ascending numbers based on the user input. So for example, if the user entered the number 5, then I would expect to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. If the user enters the number 3, then I would expect to see the numbers 1, 2, 3 here. So we're writing numbers in ascending order. I've named this txt user num, btn submit, lbl result. Let me go ahead and double click on the code so that I can put down the standard code that we put, which is declarations, get user input, calculation, and output. In the declaration section, always ask yourself, what is it that the user must give to me? What is it that I must give back to the user? So let's go back over here for some hints. Looks like the user's got to give me an integer. So I go back over here, dim user num as integer. Now, could I have used this as dim number, dim user number as opposed to user num? Yeah, any of those variables are fine. Just be descriptive. Don't do this. That's terrible. I have no idea what X represents. Be verbose. Let me know what it is that this thing represents. All right, it looks like that's all the user has to give to me. I'm going to be giving back to the user something like 1 space 2 space 3. Hey, that's a string. That's a string. It's not a number because numbers don't have spaces. It's not a double. Again, doubles don't have spaces. The only thing that can accommodate 1 space 2 space 3 is a string. So over here, I will create a variable called output as string, and I'll set it equal to nothing at first because it doesn't have anything. It's an empty string. Could I have called it something other than output, like result, display, ascending numbers output? Sure, I could have put any of those things. I just chose output. So this isn't the right thing to do. This is a thing to do. Now that I've got the declarations, I have to think about getting the user input. So user num is going to be convert dot to int 32. Whatever is inside of that text box dot text. So now I've got the number. Remember, the goal is to display numbers from 1 all the way up to whatever the user number is. Okay, so let me just write this down as a comment. You're not going to write this down. I'm just putting this down so I can visualize it. So 1 space 2 space 3 space 4 space 5, so forth and so on. Okay, I know that you see numbers on a line, but I don't want you to see this as numbers on a line. I want you to see this as numbers on a circle. Okay, let's go to the track and let's have a race. We're going to race a mile, which means that I have to run 4 times. So this is what it looks like. Okay, here I am running. Ready? Go. Do you see that circular motion? 1. Do you see that circular motion? 2, 3, 4. That's how I want you to think about numbers. When numbers are in a sequential order, see numbers on a line. 1. I'll go this way. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like running around a track, and you have to run a certain number of times to get to a particular goal. Don't see numbers on a line. Now, if I'm going to be displaying numbers, that means, and I just told you to think about numbers on a circle, how am I going to be displaying those numbers 1, 2, 3, 4? So this motion is telling you, is that an if statement? No. What kind of statement will do this type of behavior? Any ideas? A repetition statement. What are some of those different repetition statements that we just talked about? While, for, do, right? So I need a repetition statement to do this, to loop through something. If that's the case, if I said, let's go to the track and have a mile race, what do you have to have in your hand? A counter. We reset it to 0, and then every time we finish a lap, we increment from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, so forth and so on. We have to have a counter. So therefore, I am going to need a counter. And we'll give it a value later on. I just need to have one of those things in my hand to start counting, depending on how many laps I'm going to be taking. Okay, now that we've got the number, let's go over here into the calculation section. Get ready to race, which means I got to set that counter to 0. Now, if the user entered, again, don't type this, I'm just going to write this. We're starting off with the number 0. And let's say that the user wants to see 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Is the counter, which is 0, less than the user number, which is 4? Yes. So display the number 1. Is the counter less than the user number, which is 4? Yep. Display the number 2. And then we increment the counter every time we go through this, right? Because every time we're going through a lap, we've got to increment the counter. So the question is, should I do this? While counter is less than user num? Or should I say while counter is less than or equal to user num? Okay, so let's see here. If I'm running a race, the first one to the number 4 is the winner. Right? So we keep on running until we've run 4 laps because we're going to have a mile race. That would be something like this. As long as our counter is less than or equal to 4, or less than rather, as long as our counter is less than the user number, then we're going to keep on continuing. So I don't think we can see the answer at our introductory level yet if this is what's required or this is what's required. So why don't we work on the rest of the program and then figure this out later. And then once we see this, I think you'll understand how this works out. Okay, so when I enter into this looping structure, remember our goal is to display numbers ascending from 1 all the way up. I'm going to take the output and I'm going to take the old output, concatenate that with the new number, which is counter. Wait a minute, counter is 0. The user doesn't want to see 0. The user wants to see 1. So what should I do to counter to be able to display 1? Good. So we add 1 to it. And then I'm going to concatenate a space. Okay, Visual Basic allows me to get away with this, but I don't know. I think we're kind of sloppy programmers if we do this. What is this? It's a string. What is this? It's a number. I shouldn't be mixing and matching numbers and strings. They should be all strings or all numbers. Well, I'm dealing with strings, and I'm going to put a string into a string. Somehow I've got to make that a string. So what I should have done is this. Now, will this work? Yes, because Visual Basic will convert that into a string. But I should be explicit and say convert dot to string parens, and then this guy over here, and then close the parens over here. Do I have to do this in Visual Basic? No. But I recommend that you do because you are communicating something to yourself in the future or to another programmer. So I read this, hey, what? Oh, I see. He's taking this number, converting into a string, and concatenating that with another string. In fact, he's concatenating with this string over here, which is a space. So this is explicit conversion as opposed to relying on Visual Basic's implicit conversion. Right? We don't want to be lazy. We don't want the compiler to do stuff for us. We really should be doing this because it communicates something to us or to someone else in the future. All right. Now, we're junior programmers. We're intro programmers. I don't do anything else, which is catastrophic. Counter is equal to 0. Okay, so we output this. 0 is less than user number, so we output this. 0 is less than user number, so we output this. What am I doing? I am looping forever. Do you guys see that? I'm looping forever. Because counter, which is 0, is always going to be less than the user number. So what I've just displayed to you, that's called an infinite loop. You don't want to do that. I should have done this. I should have updated counter by 1. Okay, pretend this says the word age, okay? And my birthday comes up. Hey, I don't change it, right? So watch this, watch. I'm not going to age. Isn't that nice? So my birthday comes up. Hey, all right, I'm still 21 next year. Hey, I'm still 21 next year. I'm still 21. I forgot this. I forgot that. Every year you increase your number by 1. It increases by 1, right? So I have to do this because every year I'm getting 1 year older. Every lap we must increment the counter by 1. Is the counter less than user number? Because if it is, once again, append the output. So whatever the output is, add to it or append to it something new, namely all this stuff. Increment the counter and ask, shall we do this again? And we keep on doing this process over and over and over again. Okay. Now, this is what we're going to do in the code, and then I'm going to write a subroutine so that it does exactly that. So over here, the output is just simply going to be lbl result.text, and whatever the output is, that's what's going to send over here to the label. Let me go ahead and run the program. And let me put the number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me put the number 7. 1 through 7. Perfect. So our program works. Let's now go back to that question that I asked you before about putting the equal symbol here. As long as the counter is less than or equal to user number, will that change our program in any way? Let's see. So if I run the program, and if I put the number 4 here, it's displaying 5. Why? Let's think about this. Okay. Counter is 0. And remember, the user number is 4. Is 0 less than or equal to 4? Yes. 1. Is 1 less than or equal to 4? Yeah. 2 less than or equal to 4? Yeah. 3 less than or equal to 4? Yes. 4 less than or equal to 4? Yes. So we go over here. Now, count how many times I looped. Okay, so this is 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I looped 5 times. That's why I got that number 5, but I don't want that. I want numbers 1 through 4. So really what I should have done here is I should have said, as long as counter is less than this. Now what does this thing do? It loops 4 times if the user number is 4. So really it just depends on your starting point. See, we computer scientists, we like to start counting from 0. Just like you're running a race on a track in a field. You've got to set that counter to 0. Well, if you're counting 0, then count the number, raise the number of fingers up in your mind, like I'm physically doing right now. My first finger is up for the 0, then my second one for the 1, the 2, the 3. That's 4 fingers that I just raised up when I count from 0, 1, 2, 3. That's how this is working out. 0, 1, 2, 3. That's 4 laps, starting from 0. Now, you and I are used to starting counting because we have fingers, right? The first finger that I put up, I would say 1. I wouldn't say 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm holding up 4 fingers. But if you start from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, that's also 4 fingers. So again, it just depends on your starting value. If you're going to start from 0, chances are you're going to put just less than, not less than or equal to. Okay? All right, so save my work. We're not done. This is the code necessary to display numbers from 1 to the user number. But I didn't want to do this here. I want to do that same code, but in a sub that does this, and I can call the sub. So here's what I want to do now. I'm going to go over here after end sub. I'm going to hit enter a couple of times. Notice that I didn't do this. This is catastrophic. Don't enter a couple of lines after end class. Everything must be within end class. So I'm going to go over here and type in my code after the end sub and before end class. I'm going to start with the word sub. Now, what is this sub supposed to do? It looks like it's supposed to create ascending numbers and display them. So we'll say create ascending numbers and display. Now, this particular code that I'm working on does not have any parameters, so I put open and close parentheses and press enter. When you look inside the parentheses, do you see anything there? No, you do not. So this is an example of code that does not receive anything. Its responsibility is to create ascending numbers and display them, and I shouldn't have to give you anything. Now, there's other video lessons that I have where we do have arguments over there. So you're going to watch those and learn about what happens when I call a sub, and it does have arguments. Here's an example of calling a sub with no arguments or with no parameters. Okay? So we've got to do everything. We've got to get the data from the user, calculate, and then display all those numbers. So a lot of the stuff that I did over here at the top, I've got to do within here. What do I have to do? In fact, I think I've got to do everything. I'm going to take all of this, I'm going to cut it, I'm going to put it right into here. Look at my main program, the btn submit click. It's got nothing. Now, it still exists, of course, and I need that to exist. Don't delete it. I just took everything from declarations all the way down to output and copied and pasted here. What am I doing? I'm creating a user number, the counter, the output. I'm getting the user number. I'm performing some sort of a calculation, which is, in essence, creating a new output every time I loop through this. At first, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for however many times the user wants to see these numbers. And then I'm going to output the result. So do you agree that if I call this thing, it will do all this stuff? All I have to do is call this, and then it's going to execute the stuff below. How do I call it? So go back over here to btn submit underscore click. Let me call create ascending numbers and just press enter. Well, actually, I should have put open and close parentheses and just press enter. What happens when I click this button? It calls this sub. Do you guys see that? What if I did this? Check this out. What happens when I click this button? It calls this sub, and then it calls it again. Do you see that? What if I did something like this? I'm calling it 3 times. In other words, I just want you to understand. You click this button, and it does something. An example. You come to my house, and there's a little teeny tiny button next to my door. When you push that button, what happens? The bell dings, right? A doorbell. So the sub, in this case, is ring doorbell. You push that button, you get a certain reaction. That's exactly what's happening here. You push this button, and this is what's going to happen. Let's see how this works. So I start. Let me enter the number 4. I push the button. This is what I expect to see. I enter another number. I push the button. This is what I expect to see. Okay. Now, what I want to do is I want to stop the code so that you can see step by step what is happening. I'm going to put a break right here on line code number 3 because I want to stop right here, jump into the sub so we can follow how this program is working. So you don't have to do this if you don't want to. You can just watch the show. I'm going to break the code right here. Let me run the program. And I'll type in the number 3. Okay, so notice how we're stopping the program right here. These 3 buttons right here are very useful. Step into, step over, step out. Now, right over here next to the help button, not on top of the help button, let me move over just a little bit, right click, and you'll see this debug. They're gone. Let me click on debug. Ah, there they are. So you should see these 3 buttons. And what I want to do is step into this guy right here, F11. I want to step into this guy. So let me click this. Ah, now I'm inside. I just jumped in the box. Now I can go ahead and, now that I'm inside, I can just step over these. And so it looks like I'm going to stop right here. We are about to get this number 3 convert it into an integer, and place it into this variable usernum, which is currently 0. So I'll say step over, and let me see here. Yep, there it is. It's 3. Nice. Counter is about to be assigned the number 0, so let me just press F10 or step over. And counter is 0. Perfect. All right. Is 0 less than 3? Yes, it is. So I'll say step over. We go into here. The output is currently nothing. It's blank. We are about to append to it the old output concatenated with whatever counter plus 1 is and a space. So when I step over, notice now what the output is. It's a 1 and a space. Counter is currently 0. It's about to become 1 because I'm going to add 1 to it. Okay, now counter is 1. Beautiful. We are finished with our first lap. Let's go back to the top. Are we going to run another lap? Well, we are, as long as counter is less than the user number. Well, user number, as you can see, is 3. Counter is 1. We're doing another lap. So I step over. Output is a string that currently has 1 and a space. I am about to append to it counter plus 1, which is 2, and a space. So now you see the output is 1 space, 2 space. Counter is 1. Now counter is 2. We have just finished our second lap. Hey, are we going to do another lap? Well, as long as counter is less than the user number, yeah, you're going to do another lap. Well, what is user number? It's 3. Is 2 less than 3? Yes. Well, let's go for another lap. Output is this. It's about to be updated. Now it's this, 1 space, 2 space, 3 space. Counter is 2. It's about to become 3. Yep, there it is. We just finished another lap. Are we going to do this again? Is 3 less than 3? No, 3 is not less than 3. Good. So the answer is no, we do not do this again. So watch what happens. We jump from here to here. Do you see how we jumped out of the while loop? We're not in that stage anymore. So the last thing to do is to take the output and put that into the text property of the label. Okay, so I'm not going to step through this anymore. Now I can just simply finish the program by clicking continue. So I click continue, and now I can see the result. So the beautiful thing about subs is that you call that chunk of code. Look at how small my code is over here. I just simply call that, and it does its job, right? I'm going to call the cook. I want a steak, right? Because that's what the cook does, cooks. I'm going to call the mail carrier. I need something delivered. I'm going to call the mechanic. I need my car fixed, right? When I call upon something to be done, it has a purpose. In this case, this particular sub has the purpose of creating ascending numbers and displaying them. And by the way, I don't even have to tell you how to do your job. You don't need anything to do your job. You're able to just simply, I'm able to call you, and you can do your job effectively because you are a sub that does not receive any parameters. Next time, we're going to take a look at subs that receive parameters. And then next week, we're going to take a look at functions that do and do not receive parameters and take it to the next level. So this is Professor Robert Solis. I hope this video lesson was helpful. Have a good day. See you next time.